This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everyone. If you're dealing with some physical challenges, maybe it's some pain, maybe discomfort, there is something that can address that you might not even know about. And it is so easy once you know, I'm going to say the word technique. It is the Alexander technique in practice for 150 years. This is not something new, but weirdly, many people don't know about it. I didn't until I met him, and we're enlightening everybody with the Alexander technique. Going to go a little deeper into it today. He has some deep knowledge in this. It's also supported him in his journey through some challenges along the way. He is a neuromuscular and rehab specialist. He's Travis Chastain, our professional of the year, and he's back with us. How are you doing today, sir?
Steve, it's so good to see you, my friend. Yeah, Merry Christmas to you. I'm very good. I'm very
You
good.
too. You too. Yeah, it's that time of the year. I would imagine a lot of anxiety and stress comes into play. So I'm going to start with that right there because I always wondered, can this technique also help you with that? You know, stress and anxiety that comes along in addition to the physical stuff.
It's one of the biggest things that the Alexander technique helps us with, Steve, is stress and anxiety, right? Because it's really all about this thing. Life is coming at us fast. Just like you mentioned, especially this time of year, life is coming at us fast all day, every day. This is the fundamental observation that FM Alexander was noticing for himself. The real root of his problem, which was an over tightening of what he called his head, neck, and back relationship. But the real root of it was, he was reacting to this never-ending stress of having to perform in bigger and bigger concert halls and all these habits of tension that were wanting to happen from his reactions around the stimuli of response to reciting. Right?
Mm.
It caused all these unhealthy tensions in his body, these unhealthy habits that became overwhelming to him, and he just lost his voice, right? So the technique is all about this relationship that we have with the world, this relationship that we have with being bombarded by stimuli all the time. And it's an art and it's a principle of how to gain some independence, really, some detachment, if you will, from the need to act or react in response to this stimuli or that stimuli.
Hmm. In your knowledge of FM Alexander,
Hmm.
his challenges in performing, it started as you described with his throat, projecting his voice, etc. What was the actual cause of that? Or was that brought on from repeated performances and then also getting inside his head, if you will, about, oh, I sound differently. And then now stress starts building. And now it's going to start overtaking to the point where he couldn't perform on stage anymore. And that eventually prompted him to figure out this technique.
Well, yeah, from his own writings, the thing that happened to him was he became a bit of a victim of his own success, right, as he described it, right? He was becoming well sought out in Australia and Tasmania, in those areas, for his acting abilities. And people were really excited about wanting to hear him go perform some Shakespeare, right? And so he went from like reciting in small halls, and this is before amplification, right? So smaller halls, you can talk in one way, right? And let's say you have underlying habits of tension, you can kind of get away with it in those spaces. But then he started to move in bigger concert halls. And again, this is before amplification, like big places that he had to enunciate, pronounce, where people could hear the quality of his voice, right, easily.
Mm.
And it became overwhelming. Like, he was forcing the issue. He felt like he had to force the issue, I would say. And yeah, that put a strain on his vocal cords. He could feel it. It was happening to him. It was a real thing that was happening to him physically as well as mentally. And over time, that little stress and strain that he felt became a bigger stress and strain to the point like he could barely get through a recital. He was pushing so hard. Right? And then he just lost his voice. And then he went to the doctor. The doctor didn't have an explanation. And then he lost his voice again after doing vocal rest. And it just kept happening to him. There was a very real physical reason it was happening to him. And there was a way of thinking that he was doing that was causing the physical habits, right? But that's how it turns out, is that things start in the mind, in the brain, and there's pathways that we have formed. We call these pathways habits. And he learned how to carry habits of excess in his life, like we all do. And he got put into a situation where, in order to continue doing what he was doing, he had to overcome those habits of excess.
Would you say he kind of did it to himself? And what I mean by that is he started looking at the demand for the larger performance venues. So now he started worrying, like, how am I going to be able to project my voice? And then now fear and anxiety set in, which is never good. And eventually it translates to your body. Is that kind of where it began? Maybe he didn't have vocal issues. It was anxiety over if he could pull this next one off in this big place and now the next big place and on.
Well, he never really talked about that in his books, right? About the fear and anxiety. I think it's very natural that any performer, if you're a human being, you're going to have butterflies, you're going to have the anxiety behind it, right? We all have that anytime we're performing and communicating, right? Whether it be for one person or 1,000. But that wasn't necessarily his problem. His problem is that, and what the problem for all performers is that we fall to our training, so to speak. We never rise to the occasion. We always fall to our training, How did we rehearse that? How did we practice that? And and those things kick in automatically for us under pressure. For better or for worse, they kick in for us under pressure, right? And I remember him talking, I can't remember which book it is at this point, but I remember him talking about how one of his acting coaches was always like, "Oh, you're holding so much tension in your heels and your legs. You got to relax your legs." And when he was working out his process for himself and things were starting to release in his neck, he was feeling those things release in his heels as well. And it made him remember, oh yeah, my acting coach was talking about those things. So what I'm trying to tell you there is that he was recollecting, as he was starting to resolve his problem, of his acting coach pointing to particular habits that he had trained over time, of these excessive tensions that he defaulted to. And we all default to our old familiar under stress. That's the fact. We all default to our old familiar, most dominant psychophysical habits. We rely on those things under pressure.
It's safety.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It's safety, and it's almost like the concept of gravity. It's what is. What will happen, right? Is when we're under pressure, we're going to default to what we've trained the most, and that's just how it's going to go. And for FM Alexander, he trained the most. It wasn't necessarily a conscious thing. He wasn't 100% present to it, and he certainly wasn't present to how to fix it once he became present to it. But he defaulted to what we all default to. He called it the habit of life, right? Because we all do this. He defaulted when under the pressure of reciting to tighten these suboccipital muscles in his upper neck right here, right? To get them down, and that caused a triggering of this motion in his head. And what that does is that causes a locking down of that top joint. And then, imagine, you're reciting, and every time you decide to recite, this is happening to you in some degree. Like, so it was happening to him every time he enunciated in one degree or another. And then that causes a pattern of holding in the neck. And he noticed it caused a pattern of holding and misshaping the back, both in its length and in its width, right? So ultimately, what he discovered when he was desperately trying to save his career, what he discovered was that, what he lacked was a proper amount of space that the body needed in the act of reciting. To get that air out in a way that was clean and healthy, and that energy out in a way that was clean and healthy, that didn't run into this obstacle or that obstacle in the body, right? And what he found is that, again, when you're training, like he was training, every time you go to act, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're getting more and more pulled into it. You're shrinking your spine more and more every time you do it. You don't know that it's a problem until it becomes catastrophic for him, or it becomes catastrophic for me. Right? All you know is that you're running into an obstacle that you don't necessarily know how to deal with. Things kind of feel difficult and you don't really know why. Maybe learning becomes harder than it should be in one thing or another, whatever it is, right?
But I bet you, Travis, what comes next? Fear.
Oh yeah.
How am I going to perform? How am I going to do this? Playing guitar, classical guitar. Something's not right, but I don't know how to fix it. So right away, you go into the proverbial, fight or flight, maybe not elevated, but that kicks in, which I have to believe just makes the situation even worse.
Right. There's that anticipation of the failure almost thing.
Yes,
happens, right.
For sure.
And it's a real problem because, you get this pain and you get it again, and then you start anticipating that it's going to keep coming. And I like what you said there, Steve. It is a fight or flight reflex. And in fact, if you ever study like a dog being threatened, that's what they do. When they're threatened, they curl that head up against their spine. Excuse me. What I just did there.
It's all part of the demonstration.
Whoa! They load themselves up for combat. Right?
Yes. Like the recoil.
Yeah. They load themselves up for it, right? And for whatever reason, animals, they get under stress and they get into that fight or flight reflex, which is appropriate for the circumstance. And then when the circumstance changes, they're able to let go of it. But perhaps it's because we're conscious, perhaps it's because we have memory. It's more sophisticated than they do. We have a lot harder time of letting go of that stuff than they do. But that's exactly what it is. You're absolutely right, Steve. It is the fight or flight reflex. For us human beings, it looks like, as he described, the tightening the neck, the pulling the head back and down, and the compressing of the whole back. And we can learn how to live in that space all the days of our lives. And that's what he was doing. Yeah. That's what I was doing.
Well, he I guess out of necessity, came up with this technique. He's up against the wall. How am I going to perform? Nothing's really coming out as I try to speak.
Yeah.
And now I got to deliver it to many more people at this venue. And now they want me at that one. They want me at that one. There's no amplifiers. What do I do? I'm getting a lot of credit for coming up with this.
Oh, I mean, it took a marvelous amount of persistence on his part, but as you said, it was born from a place of desperation, right? Because, he went the traditional route. It's like, well, doctor, what am I doing? What's going on here? The doctor's like, well, I don't see anything wrong with you. I don't see anything wrong with your throat. It doesn't seem like anything structurally is wrong, but here, go on vocal rest your voice will return and I'm sure you'll be fine. He went on vocal rest. His voice returned, but things weren't fine. He went back and recited, and the problem happened again and again and again for him, right? So, he didn't really have another choice. And isn't it amazing how many of the most brilliant, amazing, marvelous things that have come to the world have come from that place of desperation and a place of I must find the solution to this problem, right? And I'm just not going to give up until I do. And that's the thing that FM had as a remarkable gift. He had two things. He had the capacity to not give up under any circumstances, and he had a unique talent to kind of question the authority. He was, when he was going through school, he's like, teachers hated him because he was always asking questions all the time. And, well, why is it that way? Why is it this way? He had a remarkably curious and persistence to him. But from it, he discovered one of the greatest things that was discovered possibly in the 20th century. And if we all learn what he discovered, then perhaps his dream will come true. And none of us will have that chronic back pain and those things, those challenges that we feel that are, what's the word? The challenges that we feel that we can't overcome. Right? Yep. They can't be overcome. Yeah.
Can you give us a feel for the technique? Yeah. An example of how, basic situation of how it may help somebody overcome something?
Yeah. Well, I'd say that the word here is intentionality, right? We're all about being intentional around how we're reacting and responding to stimuli. And it's about recognizing some facts that are always running in the surface, underneath the surface, and just bringing them to the surface. Let me give you an example. Let's say I ask you to move your right arm up and down. In fact, do this with me a couple times, Steve. Take your right arm, let's do the jig. Move that right arm up. Yeah, move it up, my friend. Yeah, move it up.
Microphone in the way. I feel like I'm restricted.
Yeah.
So
okay, well, then move the left hand. Whatever. It doesn't matter what the movement is, my friend. All right. So just move it a couple times and just notice that movement. Okay. And now bring it down. Okay. So when you did that movement several times, what you did is you acted out the most familiar habit program, if you will, on how you do that. So now if we want to change it in a way that's a little bit easier, in a way that's a little healthier, we have to bring some intentionality to some facts that we don't tend to recognize. Well, what's a basic fact that we can recognize here? Before I do this action, there's a choice to not do the action. Would you agree that that's true?
Absolutely. And then I would imagine there's also a choice of how you're going to do the action.
How you do the action, or that perhaps there's a completely different action that can be done. Right? And so that's what FM, came to first, is that there's something really cool, powerful and cool about recognizing some basic facts that we don't tend to recognize. That when I recognize, and let's do this together, my friend.
Sure.
Okay. So say to yourself, I'm going to lift that left arm up. Don't close your eyes, please. Thank you, friend. So say to yourself, I'm going to lift that left arm up.
To myself, I say that.
Yeah, say that to yourself.
Sure.
And now what I want you to say to yourself is this word no. And this doesn't mean that I'm absolutely never going to lift my arm. It doesn't mean that. What it means is let's get in connection to the fact that there's a choice to do that now, do that later, do something entirely different. So every time I say that word no, that's the meaning that I want you to remember behind that word. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Steve, go ahead and lift that left arm. And now, I got you. So now what I want you to do instead of lifting it immediately, think the word no to that. So the first thing that that's doing is you're retraining your mind to not automatically and immediately go into its most familiar habit. You're training the mind to stop before it goes down that neuromuscular pathway of communication all the way down to your arm, right? So you're retraining yourself intentionally to say no instead of yes automatically. So let's keep doing this a couple times. Steve, lift that arm.
No.
Yeah, good. And so let's just keep thinking that a couple times, just to leave yourself alone. Yeah, good. So I see you getting a little bit more centered right now, and that's very good. So here's the next thing that I want you to get in connection to. We're going to keep practicing this leaving yourself alone, which is what this word no means. Okay. But then we're going to add, just get into connection where the top of your neck is. Like it's way up here. These are the suboccipital muscles, the first point of muscular connection to your spine and your occiput of your head. Okay, so now I'm going to give you the stimuli again to move your arm. Think no. Steve, move your arm. Good. Think no. Now I just want you to have this thought. It's so quick, this thought. And once it's there, it's gone. Just have this thought of my neck is free. Now try not to do anything with that thought. Thank you. Okay. Steve, move that arm. No. So you're already reprogramming things, aren't you? My neck is free. Final thing before we run out of time. The next the next mental order he gave was for the head to release forward and up. And so what that means is not put your head forward. It's not that. It's the forward is that, okay, I'm going to unlock my head here. It's just a gentle rotation on top of the ears. And what that will do is it'll probably let your jaw drop a bit. And then from there, you're just straight up in space. Okay, so that's the next order that I don't want you to do anything around. I just want you to think it very lightly and then let it go. Okay, Steve, move that arm. No. See? My neck is free. Good. Good job not doing anything other than thinking it there, my friend. My head is releasing forward and up. Now move your arm and think that while you do it. Go ahead. Move with conviction. Go. All right. And then notice what was different about that movement. So what was different about that movement versus the first time you were doing it?
The anticipation, because I have to tell you, that is the shoulder and the arm that gives me some trouble. Like if I move it this way, I can feel tightness here. It's been that way for 2 years.
Right.
And back here, but in moving it the last time there, I felt it even just now a lot freer.
Right.
A lot freer. I want to go to like literally a minute left, but this
question, sorry, my friend. Yeah.
No, all good, all good. This question actually ties into what we're talking about.
Yeah.
This is from Evan in Clearwater, Florida, and says, I often hear posture advice that boils down to forcing yourself to sit or stand up straight, which usually feels uncomfortable and unsustainable. How does the Alexander technique approach posture differently, and why does it emphasize ease rather than correction?
That's beautiful. That's a great question, Evan. Well, you just said it. when you try to sit up straight, when you're not in the habit of sitting up straight, it feels so desperately uncomfortable and it feels unsustainable.
Yep.
Right. And the reason it feels unsustainable is because you have habits of tension that will always overwhelm your best intentions. And the paradox is that when we try to view it from the point of weakness and that we need to strengthen up, well, the paradox is that we tend to kind of feed into those habits of tension to begin with, right? We tend to strengthen them because what is the definition of imbalance? There are some things within you that are doing too much, which is causing other things within you to do far too little. For things that are doing too much, that means that things that should be doing their job, they have been left not to be able to. So how the Alexander technique works is this, is that, gravity is always there. If you just manage to convince those things that are doing far too much within you to just stop doing that a little bit, then the areas of your body that have been habitually used to not doing enough, they must kick in. You know why they must kick in? Because gravity exists, and in order for you not to fall like a piece of blob onto the floor, they have to kick in. And then because of that, those parts start to strengthen automatically. There's a stretch reflex that happens because of the fact that you correct this head posture a little bit. And then the deep muscles in the spine, because the superficial muscles you're telling to let go, they have to correct. They have to kick in. Otherwise, you will collapse to the floor. Gravity will take you there, right? So that's how you get things into balance. But if you always view things from the point of strength, then you always feed into those habits of tension. And things are become mountains that you can't move. The evidence of that is the overwhelming amount of problems that we have around movement, posture, that all the good intentions in the world don't seem to matter in doing anything about, do they?
And it's so sad too, because when and I have a friend, she is a trainer. She doesn't mess around.
Yeah.
And she will say, when I see her, soldier proud, soldier proud. She's trying to tell me because my posture's not good.
Right.
Sit up straight. Now, if you look at it in the mirror, the way it should be, like you within that zone,
right.
You look like you should look. But in doing that, because we're so fixated on it not being that way, it's uncomfortable, just like Evan had said.
Well, and it's held, and held equals artificial. It's not true.
Yeah.
Look at babies. My 11-month-old, she doesn't need to hold anything. She's just there sitting, and it's gorgeous.
Yep.
She can. So the better question is well, where did I go off? Because that was me. That was me.
At one time.
What happened?
That
was me.
It might have been when you were 4, but it was there where, posture was probably pretty good. Unless you had some substantial physical issues.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, but for the vast majority, if that's not the case, so what happened, right? And so maybe the better question is learning to unlearn the things that are taking me away from what I already know.
So I have one question. It's like just dropped in my mind that I feel I need to ask it real quick. For those of us who don't have good posture, is there a potential correlation to psychological things or things below the surface, maybe call it the subconscious, where let's say you got bullied as a kid. Let's say, you had some self-esteem issues and all of that. So when you walk into a room, you kind of walk like that. And you don't want to, but over time, your mind has kind of put that posture on you. Is that a very possible situation why we might have that posture? Yeah. Okay.
I think that's a very big, yeah, I mean, certainly my case, absolutely. Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel same thing with me.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we all get thrown into the world that tells us that we're not enough as we are, and so we start to hold postures that aren't us.
Yep. Yep.
You know, and maybe that is the fundamental difference between us and the child that hasn't been told that they're not enough. Maybe that is. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I
It
would
might
have to
be.
say, I would imagine it would be. And
Yeah.
even like what my friend's saying, shoulder proud. Well, the word proud, maybe that's lacking in us from back in the day. And that's why our posture may not be the best. Or yeah, we get old and things happen along the way. Does the Alexander technique help you rewire that or make a change in that thinking to give you the best posture, the best physical feeling?
Well, it's inevitable that it will, and it happens in a way that's not needing to be held, right?
It's natural.
It's happening in a
Becomes
way
natural.
that it's natural. Yeah, that you don't have to force yourself to be upright here while you're having this conversation, right? That
Mm,
you've trained yourself to be listening and curious and attentive to what's getting in the way of this rather than fixing this.
mm.
Like what's getting in the way of the effortlessness? Let's work with that. And maybe I won't be perfectly upright and effortless today. Maybe it won't happen tomorrow, but it's mine.
Yep.
If I just keep being patient and I keep leaving myself alone and I keep allowing those things to let go one thing at a time, and I learn about what let go, if I allow myself to see how I move differently there and then move differently with conviction, you are going to retrain those psychophysical habits. You're going to re-educate them out of you. And that's the point. That's what it is. The point of it is to re-educate those out of us for good, for life, right? In a way that is healthy, in a way that is kind, in a
Mm.
way that is appropriate to the design of the human being.
That's a key point you
And if
bring
it's not
on
those
there.
things,
The last part
yeah,
there, like let's
yeah,
say even as a kid, and I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day about this, that they were diagnosed with scoliosis when they were a kid.
yeah,
Maybe not a
yeah.
severe case, and even if you look at her now, her posture isn't that bad. However, she has back pain. You would never even
Mhm.
know. She looks in shape, but back pain all the time.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'll bet you she's holding tension from something, not necessarily the scoliosis, um, just things along life, along life.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the truth is that we all have something like that, a kyphosis or a scoliosis of some degree or another. We all do it habitually, and that's what the technique is aimed at doing, is helping us A, become aware of it,
Yep.
B, to let go of it, C, to move outside of it. And that's it. It's just that simple. It doesn't take rocket science. It doesn't take sitting in a gym for 5 hours a day. I mean, you can use the Alexander technique while you go to the gym if you want. That'd be awesome. You don't need to.
My wake up to this whole thing was the first time we met, and you said, "Yeah, you're online. I'm getting a cup of coffee. You can be doing
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
without any major effort." Um,
Yeah.
what's the first step? Somebody wants to connect with you, Travis, learn some more.
Yeah.
You can work virtually with anybody anywhere on this. How do they find you?
Yeah. You can reach me at my website, www.bodymindbalanceco.com. Reach out. Let's get a free session and let's work out whatever you want to work out. It's gonna be fun.
Hmm. My arm feels better, and I'm not
If it
just saying
ain't,
that.
well, of course. Yeah, you know what? I have a secret intention. Well, we'll keep doing this every time until your shoulder is gone in about 10 lessons.
And I'm going to say to you right now, I have 1000% faith in you. It almost sounds
Mhm.
hard to believe because I've had it
Yeah.
for 2 years. I went to doctors. I went to physical therapy. I didn't continue with physical therapy because the practice just, I don't want to write on the negative side, but it was just like a factory, and it wasn't custom to this. It was like, here, stretch this band, do this. I'm like, that's not going to work. It's something specific going on there, whatever that something is. But I guess it doesn't matter with the Alexander technique.
Well, I mean, the problem as we see it is that these things always relate to the body as a compartmentalized, divided structure, where that's not how function works. Function works holistically. If you're not dealing with it holistically, you're missing the point in a very real way. And that's what FM Alexander was talking about.
Excellent talk
today.
today.
It takes a little bit of a paradigm shift. Yeah.
Good stuff. Learned even more, validated more. Want to say this: if you have a question about anything that we've talked about, or maybe even not, maybe there's something that's flown out there in terms of the technique, instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. Travis, as always, thank you so much, and happy holidays to you and your family. Merry Christmas.
Well, Merry Christmas to you, Steve. Have a great one, okay? Thanks,
too.
Evan. Great question.
We'll talk soon. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.